Hey Moritz,
Hello.
how are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, for accepting the invitation. Um, we've been chatting and actually meeting even in person, for a long time, right? And then actually, we had this, just at least for me, it was such a great pleasure, to be part of the project with your company. So I mean, I'm super happy that you accepted the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. And it was a real pleasure working with you guys. And I'm really happy how everything turned out. Doing the cooperation with Pro Tools and NoiseWorks. I think it was great value for all of our customers.
True. So let me just before we start, let me say a few words to that's to the listeners what they can expect today. So this is the 13th episode of the Audio Products podcast, and today we have a super special guest. Moritz is a co-founder of the company called NoiseWorks, and like you already heard, we had this pleasure working together because. Um, NoiseWorks prepared a special version of the flagship product for Pro Tools, and I had this privilege actually to be part of this project, implementing this for Pro Tools customers. This is where I actually fell in love with the product. So for all listening, DynAssist and the product. Okay, we're going to talk about it today, and I know that Maurice actually prepared a short, also like a walkthrough. So this actually plugin is behind editing this podcast. So whenever you actually say, "Oh, this is actually pretty nice audio," you should actually know that the NoiseWorks DynAssist is actually behind of some of the editing. I mean, most of the editing in the podcast, right? So that's why I was so stoked actually to that when Maurice actually accepted the invitation, because obviously we have so many products, and I'm actually like a fan of many of those. I mean, hardware and software, but I mean, some of them actually bring a lot of value to me personally. And probably podcast wouldn't be. I have like my daily job at Avid and doing the podcast in the evening. So having like a plugin that do a lot of like a hard work for me and actually make this podcast somehow digestible for you guys. It's so cool. And also, like the title of the episode today is a success story of audio startup, because I'm probably not the only one who's so stoked with the product, and yeah. So I wanted to pick the brain, Maurice's brain, about the about how they founded NoiseWorks with Ilan, his business partner, and it's obviously the second episode of this second season, which turns out to be more entrepreneurial. So we're not only talking about the product development, product marketing, but generally speaking about the entrepreneurial aspects. So how to build your own small company, or maybe bigger. Yeah. So that's what we can expect today. So Maurice, I mean, if maybe we can just start, traditionally, you can tell a little bit about yourself and, what's your background, so how, yeah. So,
Yeah, sure. I'm Moritz Surwehme. The Americans often call me Morris, the Doppel R. I'm 25 years old. I'm the co-founder of NoiseWorks, and I'm responsible for the technical part of things there. And we have one flagship product, like you already mentioned, DynAssist, which is like should be the go-to podcast and music editing tool for you guys. But yeah, it's basically a tool that combines a few steps you would normally do by hand in the timeline. And that's the short version. I've been at it for around 4 years now. And I think officially founded it since 3 years.
that's so cool. That's so cool. But I mean, yeah, I, can you just also, tell, about, are you an audio engineer by education? So, or, how come actually, what was the idea? How come you funded NoiseWorks, so like, that's actually what it's.
Yeah, well, I was not really a real musician before, I would say. When I was 16, I started making music in the computer, but I was never
Mm-hmm.
like playing an instrument before, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Then I decided when I was 19 years old to do audio engineering at university and
Uh-huh.
focus on that. And I did that and it was really fun. And I was also like recruiting for a few small artists on the side, like a little side hustle. But yeah, that's when I already had my first idea. And for product, but I was never really thinking about what study audio engineering and then will create a product to solve problems for other engineers, really.
Okay. And I remember that you mentioned when we spoke, before the podcast that actually you didn't know how to code. You actually learn this like while building your first product. Is this it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not really. I wouldn't really call it the first product because it wasn't really planned to be a product.
Okay.
It was my bachelor thesis at the university
Ah,
because I thought I wanted to like when I spent so much time on a project that I want to do something that I thought would be really cool. And at the time, I often had like a trick for my vocals where I split it into multiple bands and then have different delay times, different ping pongs on the different delays. So I created a multi-band delay plugin, and we don't even sell it anymore. It was never originally meant to be sold. And then afterwards, like when I finished it, it was really, really fun. It was also really, really hard to learn C++ and all the stuff around it, the plugin frameworks and everything. But after a lot of pain, it started to actually work, and it was really, really fun. I absolutely fell in love with the engineering challenge. I thought if I don't try this now, I will never try it. I had nothing to lose, fresh out of university, no family, nothing that depends on me making money, and so I just went with it.
cool. So like, how did you like did you learning how to code? Did you also like use some of the, let's for example, tutorials from I don't know, audio programmer, etc.? What was
Yes,
your
yes. It was actually really cool that the last episode is with the audio programmer. I don't know if it's the last one when this comes out,
yeah.
but I think honestly, I also talked to him about this and met him at a convention. I don't think I would be sitting here if he wouldn't exist. I think it was a really, really great starting point. Of course, there were some other things. For example, I first learned C++, the language, properly. I can really recommend the tutorials from the Cherno on YouTube, like really short. You might want to watch them more than one time, but they are really a really great resource to get started, really, because you have to know some C++ to work on the plugin side of things. And then I started watching the audio programmer with his tutorials on the Juice framework. And then I went deeper into, for example, I read the book Designing Audio Effect Plugins by Will Perkle. That was a really, really great one where you learn a lot of DSP basics. And I think the rest after that was mainly fail yourself and learn from your mistakes.
That's
Because
cool.
there were like, Multilay, then came GainAim, and we made 2 other plugins, and then DynAssist came out.
All right. So you say that DynAssist wasn't like there was actually some plugins before. Actually,
Yeah.
you came up with the DynAssist. So are they still in sale? Are you still like offering them?
Multilay isn't. The Multilay is the multi-band delay.
Mm-hmm.
I made the first time. That's also when like Ilan, my co-founder, was on board like from the beginning, really. And he was always focused on the marketing side of things. And then some point we decided it just isn't good enough anymore, to be honest. And we really want to create like really tools that have a really great use case and also really don't crash. Multilay sometimes had some threading issues, and I'm not I'm not unhappy about doing all the things with Multilay, but it was like just mainly a good lecture and not really for sale anymore. But the others are still on sale. GainAim, N-Shape, and Transplit are still on sale. But we really focus on DynAssist because it's just so much more value for the customer.
Yeah, I can see that. So so how come what was the like original idea? How did you come up with the idea for DynAssist?
We had this one of the smaller plugins we have is called GainAim. It's GainAim, just to be clear. Like some native English speakers confused that a little bit. We never really realized that. We are both Germans. We never realized that. But
Okay.
really, the problem with the rider in like GainAim is a vocal rider essentially that evens out the loudness. And I really like the algorithm, and you had way less parameters than with the other tools available. But the core problem was always choosing a speed, because if you have really long look ahead times, you can't have too long look ahead times with real time audio, and you couldn't create a next level rider without these long look ahead times. And the original idea for DynAssist was to have a rider that has infinite look ahead and that can then write the very smooth automation. And we realized, okay, there is not really a way around this. Like, for example, with Pro Tools, you have the audio suite, but the audio suite, this is not a format you can apply to other hosts. And we wanted to have a solution for everybody, essentially. So we went with ARA, and the progression was really natural. Because then we realized, okay, the other editing step, like cutting out the silences in between, also really, really heavily benefits from the offline rendering, from reading an entire file before processing anything. And this is how the gate section came about. And then we realized with the gate section, okay, that's really great, but sometimes you just really can't find good thresholds. So you need AI to detect the vocal activity. And then you have this compounding effects of, okay, now the offline processing allows you for better timing of all these edits and allows you to run the AI with bigger models. And all these advantages, I think, really are the reason why DynAssist is better than a lot of other solutions. And the other two sections were the same. Okay, if you now already can cut out the silence in between and have the writing, you have to decide what happens with the breathing, because it's pretty silent as well, but you often want to keep it in. So you also have to detect the breaths, essentially, to do like the perfect loudness automation. And then a ton of people also requested sibilance when we did the first test, and this is how these 4 sections essentially came about. But yeah, it was really, really natural. Of course, we pushed the timelines back because we added more and more stuff. And I know that's kind of a sin for a lot of projects, but I think this is also an advantage we have as a startup. When we really see the value of doing these things, there's no one to fight this for this. We do this, and we can create the best product we as engineers also love to use. And that's also really what motivates me, because it's so cool to see it in action when we record a podcast like this, for example, and have it cleaned up.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I got it. But listen, I mean, so you mentioned like in between that you had this original idea and then actually testers. To me, what I'm super interested in, I think, people who, like to find like a set up a business, right? And found a company, maybe interested, so what is when there are sort of source of these ideas, right? So you understand that you have one idea, like a, like a gain writing, but then you have another idea. So when those, like a new ideas were coming from, you mentioned testers, right? So you have some like original testers, right? Alpha, beta testers, something like that.
Yes, we have a close circle of people. We show the plugins, but a lot of this was actually happening internally. I think it's really, really, really useful that when you are deep into the technical side of things and have a deep knowledge of the user base, because it's way better to evaluate ideas and there's no back and forth between two people. And it's really great that we both have this deep knowledge. So essentially, I think most of the part, like up to the breath processing especially, like most of this happened while we were internally developing. Of course, we were showing other people it. We are getting feedback, but it's also really difficult. You can't take feedback too seriously, because there's a great German saying for this, like people in Germany, we say people can't watch above the plate when they're in the plate. And essentially what that means is customers give you really great feedback on like usability, on like how things should feel, but they can't give you a great feedback on which features are missing and what's possible, because nobody would have told us that we need to add a breath detector, because to be honest, all the other breath detectors, like I bought them all, essentially. I tried them all, and I did this in my work. I did this everything manually, because it was just not precise enough. And if nobody would have told us to make a breath detector, because they just know the ones that are not precise enough, essentially.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, I had this in the past when I tried to find my first startup, that actually like a customer feedback or potential customers feedback can be super misleading, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually good to actually see like when it's, I would say, when you already have a product, it's actually good to test it against, but actually to like try to discover what kind of feature to. And I mean, people sometimes, I'm not sure if you had the same impression. I just like learn. I mean, that's my, how to say, hypothesis now today, that maybe they try to be even helpful and came up with ideas because I asked them, so they try to be creative and super helpful, and but none of them actually had some like a basis in reality. And later when we sort of try to implement, and we just learn hard way that that's that's
Yeah.
not exactly what was what was needed.
Though
Yeah.
what's really great is still like just watching the customers doing, like the actions are way more important than what they're actually saying about it. So we really heavily focus on seeing how users work with it without any opinions from them at all, because like the actions are more important than the words essentially. And this is how we focus right now. And of course, you can't. This is like this criticism of user feedback is mostly focused on like these broad decisions. I think like especially for the fine tuning and how the users should scroll through the timeline, DynAssist and all that stuff. For example, there we have like extremely useful user feedback, and we don't at all try to skip any of this feedback. Just to make that clear, I think it's just the big ones, big decisions, which are difficult to make based upon the opinions of other people, essentially.
Yeah, gotcha. By the way, do you have any, just out of curiosity, because I mean, they have this like a product management background. I mean, it's funny because I still made mistakes, although I knew all this like a market research technique. So when you say about like watching the people in the studio, or like editing, I don't know, podcasts, or mixing music, it's just like really like ethnographic research, right? So ethnographic research, a lot of, especially big companies, they do this. They actually have it special like departments and researchers who like do and visit people, right, in their work. So like did you like before funding the company have any like a knowledge in this area? It was more like a what made sense for you, more like a by intuition?
It was intuition, but the core concept is when you are a startup founder, the most valuable thing you try to get is the knowledge about your product and how the market reacts to it and how people would use it. Like that's the most important knowledge, and that's the most that has the highest value. Like getting this knowledge is the most important thing for your company. And we just instantly started, like there was no clear plan and there were mistakes before as well, but we just right away when we made products, we started DynAssist. We started showing it at our university. Let the other students that were studying there now try it out and see how they use it and give us feedback. And the same with the teachers, which was actually honestly a bit more useful because they were so deep into all these production techniques that they could give us really valuable feedback. But yeah, at the beginning it wasn't as refined as it is now, but the ideas were always there. You just have to learn as quickly as possible. You can often even learn without developing the product. You can just create designs and see how people react to it the first times and what assumptions they make and all that stuff. And you don't even have to do like all these testing runs are of course really important, but these are like a later step after the internal evaluation, after the designing and getting feedback on the designs, really. Yeah, and that's also why I think we changed so many things about DynAssist, because we just the gaps between what we thought people would like to have and what they really would have loved to have was big, even though we already released the plugin as well.
Yep. Yeah, gotcha. So like do you like use Figma or some kind of how do you build prototypes?
Yep. We use Figma for that. Yeah, right now it's I'm the designer. I used to be the designer as well for the new product. Actually, I'm no longer designing it.
Wow.
I'm still really heavily focused on the UX side of things, but the final design and making it actually shine, really, I'm out of there for now. But yeah, the design and of course there was a ton of feedback from Elon and really, really valuable feedback, but the implementation of the design and the technical side of things was on my end. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Oh, so the company grows, right? Finally, there are other people involved already in building new products. Cool. That's great. So listen, so let me still understand. So you're saying that that comes from your own, like, experience using it. So that it doesn't mean that during the studies, I don't know, you work doing some mixing, you help people with some, I don't know, like with productions, like a
Yeah, exactly. I did just for fun for myself as well. I did
okay.
productions, and there was
Mm-hmm.
I had a few local artists I recorded where I did like recording, mixing, a little bit of mastering as well. Not my main focus, more on the mixing side of things, but I was always more focused on the technical side of things, even when
Gotcha.
like making the music. It was really fun for me to just sit in the studio and really focus on getting the vocals perfect and all that stuff. I always loved that.
Okay, fair. I mean, just it's always like I'm just like exactly the opposite, So while I can, I'm so obsessed with actually having like like a great, let's say, musical idea, that, and I have no patience enough to focus, with tweaking all the effects and yeah, but that's great when people have like people that complement each other, right? And you have
Yeah,
both in
definitely.
the music production and in the company, when you have people who actually have these complementary skills, right? And
Yeah, and it's actually I had the same experience with sessions where I felt like the more people who are focused more on the musical side of things and more like to output ideas and melodies and all that stuff. This always worked really well with me in the sessions, and I feel like me and Ilan, we are doing something similar on the on the company side of things essentially,
mhm,
which is I think why it's he's like, of course he has a very deep technical knowledge and audio production knowledge, but he's like not on the development side of things, and it feels a little bit similar there. This is a
mhm.
similar dynamic to the mixing engineer in the recording studio and the developer together with a co-founder.
Yeah,
Also
I got it. Like Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, so like the engineer and the more like a marketing sales, like a right
I
person,
wouldn't
right?
compare to those two, but
I got it. I got it. Yeah, I know, but I mean, you know what I mean. This kind of
yeah,
skills, which is one is actually engineering, development processes, and the other is actually more like a marketing, sales,
yeah.
customer service, etc. Yeah, and I mean, by the way, that's a good question. So, what do you think? It's a like a I understand it's never perfect, and you don't have as a sort of like ideal, you know, if you have one great partner, that's already like a success. But I mean, if you would say what would be like an ideal setup, like a in the to say funder setup, you know what I mean? What kind of how many people and what kind of skills if you would just to advise somebody, like a
I think I talked to a few other founders as well, and I think I wouldn't change anything. I think the 50-50 one completely focus on marketing and business and one on the technical side of things. Like, of course, Elon is not just doing like he does like what normally 5 different people do, but it's still a great mix having this 50-50.
Yeah,
I
gotcha. Well,
think
I
I
mean,
wouldn't go with more than half of the founders not being technical, to be honest. But I
okay,
think having more technical founders would be fine as well.
okay,
I met also some guys who were like 3 technical guys, and one was focusing on the company side of things. And I think that can work well as well. But the important thing is that you are like in the trenches, that's the important thing, that you have you make decisions based off what's possible on the engineering side of things.
gotcha. And every decision, yeah, I mean, so there's so like a resource cost scarce that actually being able to do multiple. You say that Elon does multiple actually jobs, but you too, right? You are designer and engineer. So I can see like an AI engineer, so like a larger companies have a specific person for everything, and in the startup you actually, yeah, you have to do it on all by yourself, right? And everything's limited to
Used to.
how far you
Yes.
can stretch. Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to. That's good. That's good. All right, all right, all right, all right. So, like you mentioned already, like a little bit how you refine ideas. So you say that the original ideas come from your own sort of um, how to say your own reflection about the market, and actually what do you like to see as a mixing and or mastering engineer. And then you mentioned that actually at later stage, or like maybe how to say, it's actually good to get some feedback, and actually you have testers, right? So you do you have, I don't know, some kind of like a alpha or beta testers community for?
Yes,
I know you do. I mean, that's a question
yeah.
more for like an audience. I know that you do. So yeah, that's a yeah.
Yeah, we have a beta program. We would also, by the way, like to grow. If you're really interested in that sort of things and are a technical person as well, feel free. You don't need to be a technical person on level of developing, but just technically like interested in these sort of products. You can always hit me up. By the way, on the side note, but yeah, we have another beta testing phase internally, of course, where we have where we let customers try out the products before we ship updates. Like right now, we have a lot of responsibility. And like I'm gonna be honest with you, with Gain Aim, I used to do this with the web developers. It's like just pushing to prod this meme, but with me it was like, okay, I have to fix the presets in Gain Aim. I don't update. I don't do any beta testing before that. That just takes too long. I just launch the update. But I can't do that anymore. It's too much responsibility. It's really important to get the things really right. And I know we work together with Avid. There were sometimes some issues with the builds. And by the way, you guys have really great QA teams. Was really useful for us to get like every edge case sorted out with Pro Tools. But yeah, I think people really underestimate the power of this sort of iteration, and this can really speed things up a lot.
But do you like break it down into, I don't know, alpha and beta? So do you have like some kind of early testing, etc.? Or for now, no. For now, it's just enough to have like one group which is actually do all this, just like let's say late prototypes, etc.
Yeah, I think this alpha beta thing is kind of just a naming thing, but we don't have two distinct phases if you're talking about that.
Oh, that's what I mean.
We used to have just different beta phases where we just had different versions of the product. Maybe you can call them alpha phases as well, to be honest. But
yeah, gotcha.
there were just different stages. There was just like this 1 or 2 stage thing. It was just iteration until it's great.
Gotcha. Moritz, maybe what we could do is actually, like show a little bit how DynAssist look like. If you can, show. Of course, for those who are listening on the streaming platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there is a link in the episode of the YouTube channel where you have the YouTube version of this, and you can actually watch. And also, like in the description, of the episode, there is a link to the video with the, like a, full walkthrough of the product. So if you want to have a look, and see how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on. Show. Can you show us?
Yeah, well, it's honestly pretty straightforward. It's an ARA plugin, so you can't put it in the normal inserts. There's a Studio One session. You can right-click it. You can go in the inserts to see it. It's different for every single host, but essentially you just load it up. It does a scan and writes this loudness automation. And this automation can then be controlled with parameters. You can say, okay, it should go a little bit quicker, but then a little bit smoother. Don't do the changes too strong. You can also make it go pretty slow, but do the changes a little bit stronger. You have the gate, you have the breath, you have the sibilance split into 4 phases. And of course, you can go in and move stuff around yourself. So the idea was to not lose any control while saving a ton of time by automating this this task. Yeah, and that's really the short version. I don't know. I think it might not be the best place to do a long version here, but I hope you can get like a rough feeling of what DynAssist does just from this quick demo.
Yeah. Well, that's If somebody wants to go and actually like a look, and they can just click the link I think below. But I have to tell you, that's just from experience that that was like a big surprise to me that I just simply took an episode. Obviously, that's funny because I learned we worked already for a couple of months, and I was obviously doing this editing of this podcast. Some guests come without the good mic, and they're like say a room that have a lot of reverberation, so it was super hard to edit. And then I say, hey, hold on, I have DynAssist, and just like I put the target loudness, which is for social media, for social platforms, 14 loops, I believe, right? And then click, and I didn't even play so much with the parameters because the result was, I was just blown away. I was just very quickly, so I just took all the other episodes, like I would just simply like clean up whatever is possible. Of course there are some which is funny because we visit this like audio podcast, so you would assume that every single guest will have the best mic and the best room, but it's not always possible to do that. Yeah. So, but guys, so if you want to like check out, you go down there in the description of the episode. All right. So Moritz, so like I know that it is Ilan who is just responsible for the marketing and sales side, but can you I mean at least like a high level sell how you build the sales and marketing, and actually maybe also what is actually the most important source of customers for you right now? That's probably for the potential funders important, right? I mean, information, right? So where does the come, from either this is from fairs or maybe from, some, how do you call it? Like, influencers, whatever, so what's your...
Yeah, well, the important factors changed over the time. Like the early stage was something completely different compared to the marketing we're doing right now. And I think the most important thing to know is like the users need the touch points, and it's always really difficult to have just this one thing that works that keeps working really well. Like you need to generate touch points anywhere possible, essentially. But when we got started, of course, you can only really generate these touch points with other people's reach, because no one knows you and no one takes you seriously when no one knows you. Which is why you need influencers at the beginning. We needed influencers at the beginning to get started. I don't want to generalize here, but that was like it's just a huge difference for us at the beginning. And social ads, meta advertising is really scalable, and you really have to focus on the ways to optimize these campaigns as well. Like we put a ton of effort in optimizing these campaigns. We don't even do that by ourselves anymore right now, because like, of course it's audio and you still have to get the messaging and everything yourself right, but other people can focus on this. But essentially these two were the ways to get started. And then, of course, for us, email marketing is still really important. Getting the trials for a newsletter sign up is what we are doing. And this is really useful to create just more touch points with the users, getting emails about offers. We also did engineering as marketing. So one of our tools, TransSplit, it's essentially a transient splitter, where you can also just you can split it into one instance is just transients and the other is just sustains and release phases, for example. And it's just a small helper tool, but we released that for free for short time spans, and that was also really useful for us to get started. Even though I have to say we now focus more on high quality leads than on leads in general, because like free tool leads, like these are not that useful, and we didn't saw the importance of that enough at the beginning. But having said that, I think the main thing that changed throughout the and also one thing I forgot, we go to exhibitions. This is called exhibition in English, where you just like NAMM, for example. We weren't at NAMM because we were not able financially at the beginning to go to America for this, but we went to all the shows in Germany and showed our products there. And it was extremely useful, not from a marketing side of things, but also like getting the connections with the artists, featured users. And the most important thing, I would say, really above all the others, were just learning how the users react to the plugin. You see so many people reacting to your product right away, and in really honest way. Like if you talk to someone one-on-one, they are often a little bit too nice, and if they walk past you in the convention and they take a look, they most of them are really honest, which is really great. And I think it's like a big UX research initiative to do these, especially at the beginning. We already did these without having the product out. For example, there was breath and sibilance completely missing, and we were still showing the plugin to see how people react to it, and how when we tell them, okay, that and that will be added, how people react to all these side of things. And this is also, it's a marketing thing. I know you were asking marketing strategies, but like this marketing and UX research goes a little bit hand in hand there. And today, of course, we have like I think it's pretty completely normal what we are doing with email automations and essentially still doing social media ads, working with magazines, working with influencers, just getting the word out there essentially. But honestly, I might not be the best person to talk to about this. Like you already mentioned, if it goes into detail, we should make another episode with Elon, to be honest.
True. Gotcha. No, it's actually like quite a lot already. I mean, it's just, it's a lot of information already. So maybe just I'm not sure how, let's say, sales, marketing savvy our listeners are, so just to explain, the touch points is actually like some kind of, let's say, like a place or a channel where usually our potential users are present, so for example, we try to analyze, right, where we can sort of have this first point of contact with potential groups, so that we can just give at least make them aware that our product exists. So the problem is obviously that some people, I don't know, prefer Discord, and other are using YouTube videos, and other just are just completely offline, going to fairs or concerts, etc. So it's actually interesting to understand what's your potential customer group and actually create the specific funnel, right? So like some kind of process where at the beginning is this touch point, we create some kind of communication, and then this person can actually, I have to follow through. That's interesting. Yeah. So
what we are also doing right now, what I would like to add as well is, because I think this is a great opportunity right here. If you are listening, you are probably in the audio industry, because we are always looking for partners, be it hardware or software, where we can also give a smaller version of DynAssist free to the customers, where they have the benefit of having this free version, which already does a ton of stuff. Like all the writing stuff is in there, and you can already have the smart gate and all that stuff. Because it's just really a great way to expand our audience and to give value to your customers for free. There's already something in the pipeline with some other manufacturers, but nothing I can talk, which is fixed, I can talk about yet.
Gotcha. By the way, if I can just make a small interjection and say that, of course, to everybody listening and watching, that you can find the podcast, on all the most important touch points, right? The channels, right? Of course, YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all other important podcast hosts, and you simply find, browse for Audio Product Podcast, and you will find it. Then obviously we have a joint, Discord community. So if you go it's called Audio Product Academy. So if you go to Audio Product Academy, you can it's an open server, and there are people from all around the world. Everybody really super, interested by in building products, and they're just product managers, founders, UX designers, marketers. So it's just like a business community of people who from literally all over the world. And finally, I mean, if I can make a small add, that we also have a premium side of the podcast in our Buy Me a Coffee page, and then you can actually find some additional articles, additional links from our guests, so you can like a favorite books and some portfolios and stuff. So if you, for example, are interested about a little bit more what are the inspiration of our guests, you can go there. You can just browse on Audio Product and Buy Me Academy audio podcast, and then you can either just give a small donation or subscribe and become a member. And there are obviously even reports. So we do some every couple of weeks or months. We're doing some analysis of audio market. I mean, different segments of audio market. Recently, we published almost 50 pages long analysis of automotive audio. So we were so interested about this, and so that's a lot of a valuable resources over there. And it's obviously super cool for us because this podcast is obviously non-commercial project. It's just this its purpose is to help people to find resources about building audio products. But so any small help from you guys is really, really appreciated. So that's a small thing. Obviously, at the end of the podcast, you will still be able to see those links, and they're just really down there in the description of the episode if you want to click through. By the way, you can also find in the description the link to the DynAssist. This is actually like an affiliated link, guys. So if you'd like to, give it a try, and actually, if you're just convinced, like I am, with DynAssist, there will be also like a small, it's affiliated link. So it's obviously like give small support to the podcast. Moritz, I have a still question here, if I can. You actually mentioned, said quite a lot. I'm really like interested in, that was actually quite a big surprise to me that, the social media ads are doing so much good. But so if I can just like summarize, you mentioned, or like repeat if I understood you correctly. So you're saying that initially influencers, build certain recognition, and social media ads were the most important tool, let's say, channels, or that's, what you can say from now looking back, right? That's what I understood correctly.
Yes, especially at the beginning when nobody knows you. It's really it's essentially, you can see the social ads as like a way to use this broad audience of this platform in this case, or not the influencers. So you want to and it's just so scalable, which is so useful, and you can learn so quickly about which sort of captions people react to and change these pretty quickly. And it's not as expensive as we thought at the beginning, but I don't think it's our main driver right now anymore.
Okay. So what's your main driver right now? If you would say like what is number one, like a source of clients, at that stage?
Honestly, I think it's the quality of the product itself, the mouth to mouth propaganda, because like I heard from a huge amount of people that they just saw it somewhere else and thought that they needed it. And while we were growing a lot, we were not scaling up the social media marketing, for example, a lot, which would mean that there has to be another way outside of these things. But also a ton of optimization is also really important on the website, on like optimizing all the messaging. At the beginning, we were not aggressive enough, to be honest. We were just too careful, and you just have to say the customer right away as quickly as possible. Just what what their main benefit is really. And I think we weren't good enough at that at the beginning. So all this optimization together with just getting brand recognition, having all these touch points from these social things. Like we felt how we initially got onto the German market and were growing there quicker, even though it's the same plugin, no matter if you use it in English or in German. We were growing a lot quicker in Germany, and I think that this is not just because of the social marketing, but because we have one market segment. Like all these huge companies started off with a segmented market, like they focused on one niche. And for us, it was like music editing in the German area. For Facebook, it was just one university and then spreading to the other universities. And I feel like scoping this is really useful. It's harder to make a globally successful social ad campaign than focusing on, for example, in your case, Poland, since you might be way better at the messaging.
It's like a cultural thing. Yeah, so like a language and culture and some unique sort of. I got it. Well, listen, just like I remember that in the first episode, it was like more than a year ago. There was a colleague who made these mics, the company that produces mics and actually some plugins, like mixing plugins as well. And he said that he actually used this analogy of the. It's actually like a technique. He called it like a beachhead strategy, right? So it's actually like going to market is just like remember the D-Day and like a Second World War, sort of analogy when you sort of Omaha Beach, right? You take a beachhead, so you actually attack in one place. When you actually get strong there, then you attack another segment.
Yeah.
And he was just telling the story when they actually wanted to sell in US, but they simply completely underestimated how huge United States is. Just California being as big as entire Poland, right? And we'll just sell California, right? And obviously it was just a startup, right? So we sent people over there, and obviously not to mention that in the hardware business there is actually completely different chain, and usually people sell through like resellers and like a retail, all this like a by the way German, right? Thomann and Sweetwater and others, right? But that was kind of funny, right? To listen to the story that you just like want to you have ambition, go there, and then you scale down, and actually then you just realize that you need to pick one segment, and like one at least geographically market, right? And then scale up. But I mean, that's actually another question that comes to my mind. So you mentioned Germany, but was there you mentioned like a music editing? So that's probably like a mixing, mastering engineers. That was like the first group. They like a
Yes, we initially, because that was our point, like we always
Mm.
thought about this being great for podcasts and post-production. And we are focusing on improvements on this side, on these for these people as well. But the initial idea was to have this
No?
for music production, to make it really great for music production. And from there on, like, of course, I never did features where I knew it this would be only useful for singing, for editing sung vocals. So it was always in the back and was always part of the thinking process, but you still need to focus on one sort of customer at the beginning, or at least maybe it's too generous. For us, it was really useful. I can say that for us, it was really useful to focus on one sort of customer at the beginning and spread on from there.
I think that was also kind of natural. I mean, knowing your background, it seems like this is it was like also the easiest way, because
Exactly.
you do some, like a mixing and mastering. So, you know the community. You actually, that was your, how to say, the natural evolution, so to speak, right? I mean, talking to people, like-minded people, and probably you knew already quite a lot of people, right? As well.
Yeah, the first plugin we made regarding the gain writing, gain aim, that was where we also got like a lot of contact to the industry, and which was really great, because DynAssist would have been more difficult if we didn't have that starting point. It was kind of like a stairway upwards, making more difficult, more complex plugins every step of the stair.
Gotcha. But I have to say, as a representative, I don't want to give too much price, because that people will think that I'm just kind of, this is some kind of, it's just I'm just like a too much. It's just, I don't. But I'm honestly, like, as a representative of the podcasting community, I can definitely say it's just like does a lot of, it's just such a great value. Yeah. All right. You mentioned, Moritz, that there was obviously also like a question of tweaking the messaging, right? So is this anything you can say? I mean, I was just curious how to, it's pretty, let's say. I mean, probably this is the question in general for regarding the audio products and audio product marketing. And fortunately, a lot of our clients are actually like audio engineers, so you're just already, you talk to people who are literate, right? And what's, like a gain staging is, and, they know actually a little bit, about the probably. But, is this like was it any challenge actually to tweak your messaging? And, how
Yes.
did you do that?
Yes, definitely. We did the basic A/B test
Okay.
on the website, just seeing what works better, how people react to different things, and we of course always still changing it. Always try to find ways, like yeah, like I mentioned, the most essential thing I can say here is that we weren't aggressive enough with the messaging, and you should be a little bit more bold than we were at the beginning, and because it was harder, like we just started explaining the product too quickly, and you should just start off by just giving a straight, a stripped down version of why you will benefit from this so much, essentially. And we went too technical at the beginning, and we were we were both not learned marketers, and
Yeah, I
at
got you.
the beginning that showed. But you start to learn how the market reacts to different things, how people react when they visit your website, and we also got start working with other companies who focus on specific parts of our website, for example, for SEO or for copywriting and stuff like that. And this, together with our audio engineering background, was really how we optimized the messaging.
Gotcha. I mean, just that's very interesting point that you made. And I mean, I would like to, if you don't mind, like a bottom this a little bit more out. The not being aggressive enough, it can be misunderstood. So, are you saying that you want to just like a narrow down the, you mentioned a little bit that's just too technical, too much details, but does it also mean that you want to go closer and say, hey, so guys, buy it simply, like being more bold by saying, hey, this is what it does, would you like to try, making some kind of closure on the in the funnel, or what do you mean by
No,
that?
not regarding the calls to action. Regarding the benefit for the user. So, for example, I don't know if this is still on the website right now, but we used to have something similar to, it's the best breath detection tool, or the most precise one. And I don't know if it's still on the website or not, but no matter the fact, I still deeply believe that myself. And we didn't have that at the beginning. We were just said, and people have to know that we have a really great tool regarding that. And we had an ad where we showed the people how much time they wasted doing all the editing yourself. And these sort of things, these things that just straight up show how much value the product has. We didn't do these enough at the very beginning.
Gotcha. I can see, yes, most precise brief detection, sibilance detection. Yeah.
Yes.
AI-powered Vox gain riding with infinite look ahead. Yeah, that's a fastest way to edit vocals, yeah, and dialogue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get it. It's like
I think we're not more aggressive than other companies. Just we just weren't. We were way less aggressive before, which was the mistake. This was
I wouldn't call this, aggressive, So
exactly.
Of course, it's just like a language. It's just like I understand what you're saying. I would just say that, and I can see this with a lot of people, including myself, that, and I still do have this problem, honestly. Even, doing podcasts, sometimes it's just like hard to say, being straight in the face. Okay, guys, this is the message. This is the value, right? Yeah. And just being a little bit too modest, maybe. And I'm not sure if this is right. And I'm just trying to sort of blur this because I just don't want to, I don't want people to feel like I don't know how to say, you know what I mean, big headed, and that, this is such a great source, right, of knowledge, right? So I'm just like a bit shy and and modest, and then people call me and this, say, hey, this is such a great resource and so many great guests like yourself, right? And I say, all right, if this is like people who are, 3 times more in the industry than I am, and they still find value, maybe I should not be so modest and honestly say that's the best source of knowledge for product, audio product management out there, right? Yeah. I got it.
Yeah, I think I was listening to some of the episodes before this, and I think I will actually listen to every single one. It's really cool, and there are like some guests really go into detail, and I really appreciate that about the podcast. So I think you can be less modest,
more and also more aggressive. Yeah, no, CC. So I'm just like the one thing about the podcast is obviously the funny thing is obviously it's just like learning live, which can be a bit intimidating because people can see that I'm not knowledgeable enough, but I'm always saying that this like the great benefit of like hosting a podcast is really that you have so many more knowledgeable and experienced people, and you have just like if I was to take courses for all this, that I'm just like learning, probably I would spend a fortune, right? And then I can interview funders, and that's so cool. All right, but that's a very interesting point, right? So not being bold and not being afraid to say straightforward what your product does, and even sometimes I know it's marketing, right? So you can say the best, etc., and you may actually have a sort of fear that that somebody can say, well, it's just subjective, so how can you say something is the best or the most precise or whatever? Probably that's maybe also why we hesitate. Yeah, but that's under after all, that's some marketing. And if you feel that product does the job, why not saying this? Yeah. Moritz, so that's like a lot of like information from about the funding the company. So what is the stage right now? So what are like your main? I know a little bit, so you already told me behind the scene, but yeah. So what are like where are you, and what are both for you and for Elon the most important challenges today?
Yeah, right now it's the main challenge on a personal level, I would say, is like transitioning from I'm the guy who does all the designing, all the development, to actually having a designer, having someone who does the development on the UI side of things, having someone who focuses more on the AI side of things.
Oh,
And all this management, and I'm still very important part of the development of writing the actual code and not just managing other people. So having all these responsibilities together is is really the main challenge for me right now. Having to collaborate with so many people and switching contexts for
oh
all the
yeah,
different work packages of the different people while still having my own stuff I need to do. And often these
oh yeah.
other people then also depend on my work packages, but I have to help them with some of their work packages. So then it gets stuck. And it's a lot of things to learn. I think we definitely improved there in the last months, but it was not easy to get started with that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, also the big responsibility we have right now with so many customers. We really have to get things right, and we are working on a new product right now, and also have to maintain DynAssist on the side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm pretty happy with the way we are doing it so far. And there's always room to improve, but I think we are doing the learnings. We had the learnings we had to make, um, and yeah, it's still fairly new. I'm working with these people, but
Mm-hmm.
it feels way better, and I just have to get a little bit more used to the management side of things. That's just
Yeah, gotcha. So you and you say that this is challenging. Is this just what you're saying that the like you know how to delegate and how to build the processes that are there, or or yeah, you already mentioned this is a little bit of everything. So it's just a switching context and you know delegating.
yeah
Is this
for me.
also like I don't know creating some kind of processes for them? Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, for me, it's the main change is like switching the context. But yeah, of course, we are right now at the point of creating better QA processes,
Mm-hmm.
creating better plans of how new versions are released, being a bit more strict about the CI, for example. I don't know if somebody very technical is listening here, but like we now have like every week we have multiple new plugin versions and with very tight yeah schedules between them just to be able to quickly iterate over all these features and get quick feedback in and get
Mm-hmm.
standardized QA tests from
So
the QA guy
automation.
we hired now, for example.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry I kind of interrupted you.
No. That's a lot of you know like I got it very well. I mean, I just yeah, I you know had this experience with smaller and bigger companies, so I can see exactly how you know scaling pipelines and actually CI/CD and you know all this like automated testing, etc. You know, so that can be like a pretty. I'm not an engineer, but as you know, I do some you know technical project management as well. So yeah, so I know it can be like a challenge of its own. Yeah, actually you know when some of my previous jobs I was like responsible for like a regression testing tool, so you know
Hmm.
as a product man, I mean head of product, so yeah, I know how non-technical people sometimes and do not appreciate you know how much of you know complexity is there like in the DevOps, right, and testing and like a release management side, right? In order to make, and you know, if, especially that you have multiple products and with multiple version and compatibility with so many platforms and system, right? And you know, they're changing so quickly, and for is coming, right? So that's can be yeah, like a constantly moving, right? Constantly changing environment, and we have to be constantly
Yeah. Yeah, the
ensuring
testing is
quality.
especially difficult for AIA plugins because, like, for
Oh,
VST plugins, it's very like it's pretty standardized. Of course, AU, AAX, and VST3 are different
mm-hmm,
formats, but the juice abstraction there is really great. But with
mm-hmm,
AIA, hosts are using the AIA API very differently,
yeah,
and it's really like we haven't found a really satisfying way to test this um, completely automated. And we still, before every release, of course, we do detailed, like we test every single host we officially support, because it's just too different, to be honest. And there are like really weird edge cases that only happen for some hosts, and this is still a thing where I would love to find a really great solution, to be honest. And I think that's something we will also tackle in the future.
Yep. I hear you. So, I mean, how do you learn? I mean, do you have, I don't know, some mentors, or, do you take, I don't know, courses, or this like a self-learning completely, trying to find solutions on your own? I understand that you have constantly new challenges as a co-founder, so what's your like a way to learn?
I'm mostly at the beginning. I learned a ton, of course, by just reading books. Like not even that specific books. For example, like there are some classics, the Lean Startup, like the thing I mentioned before, that knowledge is the most important thing you gain as a founder while working on your company. I didn't think of this. This was not my idea. That's written in this book, and everybody knows this book. And some of these, like there are some classics, I would say. For example, like I know Peter Thiel, extremely pretty controversial person. Is this an English word? I think so.
Whom?
Peter Thiel.
Yeah, I know the guy. Yeah.
But no matter his political beliefs in any way, his book 0 to 1, for example, is really great on understanding business. And yeah, I think I also had the pleasure of talking to a ton of really smart people and get their feeling of people explaining to me the music market and really understanding what customers want and how customers react and how customers behave. But besides that, yeah, I'm really into like reading these long form books on this sort of things. The Innovator's Dilemma is another one I can really recommend. This is really
Clayton Christensen.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know the authors, to be honest, but the Innovator's Dilemma is a really, really great book. Not for startups, just also if you are in a senior position in a large company, I think it might be even more valuable to read.
Disruptive innovation, right? I mean, how markets gets disrupted.
Yes, exactly. And sustaining innovations, how these are managed way better by large companies.
Gotcha.
An eye-opener understanding. Also, is understanding the advantages you have as a startup founder. Your main advantage is honestly just speed and flexibility.
Yeah, and this is how larger and older companies get, they just simply are not agile enough anymore, and this is like a bureaucracy and politics and etc. Yeah, and they can be like disrupted way easier by these small players, right? Who can very quickly. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's yeah, and I love this generally like writings of Clayton Christensen. Yeah, that's actually a lot of like a great concepts. And how about all this like a more let's say technical stuff, so like you talk about like testing and like a continuous delivery, and then is it just like a still like self-learning mostly?
This is just self-learned, honestly. Yeah. The great thing is the more knowledge you have, the easier it is to learn new stuff. And I think honestly, I kind of reached the tipping point there regarding the development. I feel like after doing all the C++ stuff, it was not that difficult to get into setting up a great DevOps pipeline or getting into Python a little bit for the AI things and understanding how to train AI and all that stuff. Honestly, if I would have started DynAssist with knowing that I would have to implement some AI model or something like that, I wouldn't have done it. But when the point came, I was just like, okay, there's just no other choice, and okay, this will take some weeks, but I'll just have to do it. And I really love learning just myself, and I'm really, really hungry for information. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm one of these people who I can't really read fiction books or like crime stuff or something. I always need to like some book about some knowledge. I just love
really?
that, and I think, but it's unrelated to NoiseWorks. It has always been that way.
Yeah, gotcha. But listen, I mean, I think I'm super hungry for knowledge too. But on the other note, I'm just like a nerd for science fiction. And maybe because, there is so much shit going on, in the world all the time, everywhere, that I just cannot digest some, or at least for me, this is just a way to, go to bed. And, some people, practice meditation, sports. Obviously I do love sport, but, just I cannot go to bed without my Kindle, and at least having 2 pages. I'm just like my wife is just laughing because that I'm getting old, because right now I read 2 pages and my Kindle falls from my hands. Sometimes I just wake up very quickly because it's just like makes a lot of noise falling down. But just I love reading. But I can relate very much to what you say. I cannot help but learning new stuff. I'm not so much even interested about being super successful, but I'm simply hungry always, to see how things work, right?
Yeah. Though I have to say, like, though I'm just felt like I'm not a science fiction fan at all. For example, I love Dune. Absolutely amazing sound design. When you sit in the cinema, it's something completely different when you're an audio engineer. And I also like deeply appreciate the level of audio engineering and creativity that went into this film.
Oh Jesus! I remember the first Dune when I watched this in the theater. That was actually wow. That was yeah. On the other hand, I have to tell you something. I'm not sure if you see this F1. This new movie about Formula One with Brad Pitt.
Not yet.
Yeah. Are you planning to go?
Probably. I saw, like, I'm a huge music nerd, so I just always saw the music of the film on Spotify. It got recommended to me a few times, so I was like, when there's so many things, so much songs with so many big artists, it has to be a pretty big film as well, but I didn't look into it yet.
Okay, so I don't want to sort of like sort of put you down, but to me it was kind of, I'm quite a big fan of like a Hans Zimmer work, but it went even to the concert with my father. He's actually even like a biggest fan, so I bought him a ticket for a birthday, and we went there. But we went there, I think last weekend to the movie, and I said, oh no, the same. The soundtrack is just like a copied paste from like all this science fiction movie, and to me, with actually great songs, they sounded great. But all this like a orchestral, big brass instrument sections, etc. They didn't sound too good. But that's my personal opinion. And I have this kind of like a Hans Zimmer tiredness, effect for slowly, which is actually, well, it's in some movies, like Inception or etc. This actually makes me thrills when I even think about it. They're so well, I'm not sure if you agree, right? They're so well fit to the context and the movie. And here it's just like no, it's just like such a disaster. But I think it's just a movie made just to, how to say, make money. So it's just like more like it's not like that ambitious. Technically very ambitious, but it's more like a kind of typical American movie, right?
Yeah.
So but one more thing. I know it's completely off topic, but actually I was talking to a friend yesterday about this, who is also like a musician and mixing engineer and way better than actually I am. But and he said, we talked about the Hans Zimmer, and I told him about this concert that it was so poorly like engineered. I don't know even how to say that, but like the acoustics. I'm not sure if this is just like acoustic of the whole, but I think there was somebody on the behind the desk who just made it so fucking loud. I had some sickness because of the like a level of the music that for 3 days I was actually close to like a vomiting and like a terrible headache. I couldn't. It was in the other town, so we had to drive back for hour and a half. And I say, somebody make a terrible job, and I say, that's crazy because probably this was a big concert hall and it's actually like a stadium, and there was like a big orchestra, and Hans Zimmer is not like a probably saving money on on the sound engineering, but it was like just like out of it was actually during the what is Batman, the night, what's this the title,
The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, yes. So during Dark Knight theme, the music went so loud that you can't hear anything. It was just a wall of noise, and just my father has this like a hearing, like a device, and he could simply turn it down, and he was okay. And I was just like a sick of the noise.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. So okay. Anyway, that's a small.
Let's get back to the topic.
Back to the topic. Yeah. So like any Yeah, I'm not sure if you can shed light and speak for Ilan, but I mean any other, like, that's very, very much, personal and technical challenges. But I mean, on the business side, can you just tell a little bit more what other sort of challenges you have?
Well, at the beginning, the core challenge was just being a bootstrapped company and surviving. So at the very beginning, we did 4 days a week of NoiseWorks and 2 days a week of cash jobs on the side. And that was really not a great way to move forward. And luckily, we got funded by the German government for like they're like for it's essentially for students who finish university who then start a company based off of that university degree. And we got that, and so we could stop working after that. And because it pays you a small it just pays your monthly bills essentially, and this is how we could really focus on the company. And luckily we then started growing to a point where it got more and more sustainable. And yeah, this was essentially, we got a similar loan after that as well, who also supported us for another year, and from there on things were fine. But it was like, of course it was a little bit difficult, but being bootstrapped has so many advantages. It's so nice to be completely independent. And you can also, the way you make decisions is just way easier compared to all the stuff I talked to with other founders.
You mean with like a VC or like with some grants?
Yeah, VC, like, for honestly, I don't even know if I think our ambitions weren't even big enough for VC money. We wouldn't have done that anyways. But like, we were thinking about talking with angel investors as well. And it might still happen. I'm always like open to great synergies in the audio industry, but we are not at a point where we need that right now. But always open to talk. Honestly, I completely went off topic here. The question was
challenges. Yeah. So what?
To the business side of things. I think Ilan's the best one to talk to about this, but of course, like, the marketing is just the like getting it out there. That's always a key struggle to move the biggest lever essentially.
And so how many, I mean, except for you and Ilan, how many like a full-time people you have on board with the company? If you can say, if you want to say, because I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, officially, like, we have freelancers who work for us. And this is not like where you have to come in for 40 hours and stuff like that. But we now have one QA guy who's almost full time with us. One developer is now coming full time on board, who worked with us before. Then we have another developer who focuses on the AI side of things. We work with a UI designer on a freelancing basis. We work with an agency for audio marketing and similar stuff. We work with an agency for just the meta ads. We had SEO optimizations, the search engine optimizations, done by third parties as well. Yeah, that's the current stack, essentially.
So it's quite a lot of already. So quite a lot of
it's
moving parts already.
Yeah, definitely.
Gotcha. And I know we spoke about it a little bit, Moritz, but what is to say that? Is like running a company a stressful thing for you?
Yeah. Well, of course it is. I think if having a company is not stressful at all, there's something weird going on. To be honest, no, definitely. But I think me and Ilan, we have really great ways of compensating. Like, I know it's the most generic advice, but it's by far the most valuable. I just sleep enough, eat well, and do exercise a lot. And these three together are like worth more than, like, going to the gym for, I don't know, 5 hours in total in the week. These 5 hours, I could have worked, but it makes me so much more productive in the other hours of the day. I think it's absolutely no brainer, and I get why people no life, this entrepreneurial thing, but it's really not the right way to go. I know it sometimes feels like it, but it's really isn't, and you just have to. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And
it's a very nicely put. Very nicely put. Yeah, it's so easy to sort of get carried away, and especially when you're bootstrapped, right? And that you have to be always present and works super hard. But do you have trouble?
What I talked to with Elon a few days, sorry to interrupt, but what I talked to with Elon a few days or weeks ago was like we have this kind of productivity anxiety when we start to feel like it's not the most important thing we are doing right now.
Oh yeah.
I think these sort of things, this is definitely stressful, but yeah, by being really motivated by the stuff you're doing, just seeing how DynAssist processes audio and just listening to before and after, like that's really motivating.
Yeah, I hear you. And are you able to sleep well? Can you disconnect? So to me, with my entrepreneurial, journeys before, and even like running the podcast, which is not like a, like a super ambitious, big, commercial project. But I mean, sometimes I get some kind of, it's not even like a stress, but more like a, how can I make it better? And, you wake up in the, remember we talked about waking at the middle of the night and say, oh yeah. And so do you sometimes have situations like this?
Honestly, not anymore, because the start times were so stressful, where you had like almost no customers and you try all these different things out and it just feels like failing. And that was so much harder. And of course I had that at the time. I was just constantly thinking, sometimes I was thinking, why am I really doing this while falling asleep? But I always was really motivated in the next morning. But no, these times were so much harder that now, since we are actually, we have a great product market fit and people really use our product, it's just, of course, you have the stress of having new people, you have the stress of having more responsibility, but it's still much easier than it was when you weren't making any money from the stuff you were doing. So I think it's the comparison to the harder times before that. I can sleep pretty well right now. Sometimes I just don't sleep well, not because I'm worried, but because when I start thinking about product ideas and start spinning further and further, then sometimes I have to get up in the night and just write it out of my system, write it down somewhere, get it out, and then I can sleep again. But I
can hear you.
Yeah,
I mean, writing things down, I think it's a great advice, in general, right? For not only for funders and for entrepreneurs, but I mean, generally for creative people, right? I mean, I can relate to this very much. Sometimes if I don't just write things down, or even like I'm just recording something, if I have a sketch or I shouldn't probably not say in which DAW I work in Avid, but I mean, yeah, that's when I just like sketch my idea, I already have this feeling that, it's just parked there. It's not going to be, like lost, right? And I can just sit in another iteration. And actually, by the way, this is also how I work, right? It's the small iterations, so I never, it just saving, coming back. Even if you come back in a month, you actually can have another creative ideas and just project sort of grows, yeah, and get mature. That's writing things down. And like any other sort of like a I'm not sure. Sorry if did I pull you here, ask so many questions,
no,
but I mean,
go ahead.
To me that's actually interesting because I experienced this this kind of anxiety when funding my first startup, and I know that even if we have conversations on Discord, or even when we have this meetup in Berlin, people sometimes, some people say, yeah, I would like to, like fund my own startup, or maybe there's actually some people who already have, I don't know, I'm just working on a plugin or something, so to me, it's more like a, introduce people who came the same path, but they are just more advanced, so people can take a little bit more informed decision. On the other hand, I just really realized right now that maybe that's not, you said that, if you knew before, you must probably, could have decided that not to do it. Sometimes it's better not to know all the problems that you can actually encounter in the future, right?
Yeah. You have to be a founder. Like I feel like most of the founders I meet, they are like in the right way a little bit too confident. Maybe maybe I'm like that as well, and like a little bit too risk taking.
Interesting.
Because founding a startup is not a rational thing. It's I know the numbers, like the numbers of actually long-term successful startups is like I think like 1/20 doesn't fail or something like that. And it's also like, if you're really just about the cash, there are like a lot of other careers you could do, not music tech. That's not a driver. That's not a driver that keeps you at it. That keeps pushing the product better, keeps you making the product better and better and better and better. So I really feel like that's it's just how do you say it in English? It's just this drive. You need this deep internal drive, and you need to love it. Otherwise, it's like I said, it's just not a rational thing, to be honest.
That's like very good, very nicely put. I'm not sure if you watched this episode, but I had this very interesting conversation. By the way, also a plugin company, Safari Pedals. You know the Noam from.
I talked to him actually as well. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and we had actually entire episode about what he called passion-driven product development, because it's just like the most important ingredient. And actually, in the tech industry, not just in audio, I think generally speaking, in various tech projects, people tend to overlook this internal drive, and they just find, that's just but most important processes and like a code and even on the soft side, right? Market research, they all try to somehow put everything into frameworks. Especially right now in the product management, there is plenty of this kind of Silicon Valley type. Everything has to be frameworked. And so that was actually such a fresh perspective. And he used to call it this, like a balancing act, when you need to have this confidence, because it's just like a balancing, like a balancing on the line when you have this like monocycle, and you're just, if you have doubts, then you're going and you fall, right? So it's actually, how can you be confident to stay, and on the other hand not too confident just to oversee or like miss the competition. But
sometimes it's just because you can't live without trying. Like, I don't know if I could have lived without trying it. I just had to, there was not like really the big, I didn't just think about it a few weeks if I should do it. Like after school, I just started right away, and I just couldn't have lived without trying it, to be honest. I think that's the answer for me personally, why I did that. But hard to say.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? So I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
I mean, just imagine not having founded NoiseWorks, and then I'm like 10 years into another audio engineering job, and thinking about, I could have tried this plugin thing back then, but I didn't. I was too scared.
Okay, gotcha. So it's actually better to. I understand. So you're saying that it's better actually to try and fail than actually have regrets that I could have done it. That's what you're saying.
I always knew that the real possibility was there. Like every founder has to know this. That just statistically the chance of me actually succeeding with this together with Elon is not that high.
Yeah, but so did you think about during at school, etc.? Did you already think about being entrepreneur? Was it something that you thought and you want or this is something at some point that it came when you had the product idea? That's
No, it was. I'm honestly a little bit skeptical about, like, okay, if you're already like a technical, if you're, for example, a product owner for some audio thing, I can really get it. But these people who just get into entrepreneurs because just found a company because they want to found a company, I think it's always like kind of a red flag. For me, it was just creating the tools and having the solutions. Essentially, creating the solutions was the one, and I didn't really plan it doing university. While I was creating the first plugin, and then in the later points started having actual development successes. This is when I started thinking about it. Yeah.
And this is more into actually making your ideas actually available for others rather than want to be a businessman. That's what you're saying, right? Am I?
Yeah. I'm just driven by the solutions you provide to the end customers. I'm also, it's also like I'm not that emotionally attached to all the solutions on the technical side of things.
Okay.
Like of course there are some like things like juice which are completely amazing, but I'm not doing it because I love working with juice. I make these products, but I want to make these products. Okay, I have to do DevOps, I have to do juice, I have to do Python. This is my way of, this is what motivates me, and this is my way of going at it.
But let me understand. You're not sorry. You're not saying that you are not emotionally attached to what you built. It's just like a technologist, right? That's what you're saying, or
yeah, not emotionally attached. Of course, I really deeply love the stuff I'm doing, and I love and then I can just program the entire day, no problem. I really love it. But I think what I was trying to say is I'm not biased towards any of these technologies, and I also
Gotcha.
I'm really not interested in these discussions people have about Rust versus Juice. And of course, it's like I'm really interested. What's really interesting is how these things turn out. For example, a lot of people are doing like now web-based UI in C++, but you still have the C++ backend. All this. I find this really interesting, but I'm really not interested in these emotional discussions I'm hearing left and right. And I feel like these just come from developers who like maybe are a bit too focused on one niche, maybe. And I get it. I really get it. I'm just there for the solution,
Yeah, got it. Actually, yeah, get things done. Yeah. Moritz, so what's the future? What are the future plans for NoiseWorks? If you can obviously like reveal a little bit, so what you are cooking with Ilan, and generally, so maybe if I can just break this question into two questions, so one, what's your like a vision? Do you intend to, like ambitions, to, make it something bigger? And secondly, like maybe if you can just reveal a little bit, what your loyal customers can expect as well.
Yeah, we want to grow NoiseWorks to the point required for making the best products, having the best processes, and just continue making great products, whatever it takes. This is the core idea. We are not. This will definitely mean growing right now, and we can still improve things on our end, and we want to grow to a point where we just can make really, really great products. That's essentially the way we are. We don't have a number. Okay, I know everybody has that. Maybe I should have that as well, but I don't like having it. Like I don't want to have like X amount of employees by this year or something like that. We don't have that.
Listen, to me, it's actually one of the probably greatest things I love about the audio industry is that there are so many companies and great companies like Sound, for example. I mean, Hannes will be, by the way, the CEO of Sound will be actually one of the upcoming guests. And
Great.
I mean, what I actually loved, it's one of him, but I mean, there is actually more people that are like this, who says we are not obsessed with growth, right? For the growth sake, we are obsessed with giving creators amazing tools so they can be even more creative, right? And I think it's just in this entire like Silicon Valley driven like a technology industry where everybody's obsessed with building unicorns, and and these companies, in my personal belief, they just lose their original sort of it's just, I think it's just the entrepreneurship for the like a wrong, with the wrong intentions, or like with the wrong sort of like a, if you're just like obsessed with building something huge, and to me it's just like you're already on the dark side of the force, so to speak, right? Yeah, just like the balance is very small, right? B4B.
Yeah. The thing is, the audio market just doesn't really attract these sort of people, because there's like it's a flooded market, and it's there's a lot of competition there, and it's just not the same as with other ideas. Though you have to maybe the spirit comes back in when you have all these Gen AI startups, which like right there, this is the VC the VC vibe. These are funded by VCs, so but I feel like these are like a completely different thing compared to NoiseWorks or Oak Sound, for example.
That's an interesting point. I think a lot about the AI, and not just the same. I mean, obviously, some doubts related to ethics and stuff. But I mean, to me, I was also thinking that I think AI is kind of innovation that it's not. I mean, so there are a lot of innovations that were purely created by audio people for audio people, like MIDI. I mean, all the digital recording and stuff, right? I mean, and VST, right? Steinberg, right? And even like a hardware, right? Since Moog and Dave Smith, right? And all this like filters and personal synthesizer, right? So, and to me, it's just like AI. It's kind of like a alien, When I mean alien, that is actually like from the other industry. So we're just trying to use it because it's just it's there and it's just growing. But I mean, unlike a lot of stuff in our market, it's some kind of thing we have to do. We are forced to do because the entire world is shifting, so to speak, business world. But it's not that's what I'm trying to say. So that's actually worries me a little bit because it's not like we creators found something amazing that can transform our industry. This is something the world is actually changing from outside, and we in order not to simply we just sort of borrow these right ideas. And it's not that I'm saying that I'm completely criticizing AI for completely. I find obviously some amazing applications like
Detecting breath.
Detecting breath, for example. Yes, editing podcasts quickly. Yeah, although I understand that it can take somebody else's job, right? So some mixing, mastering engineers. Yeah, this world is always changing. Yeah, but that's what kind of worries me, right? That then this is something we have no influence over, right? Where actually some innovations are sort of from the inside in the industry, and even when you read the stories of actually Dave Smith, right, and sequential. So I'm not sure which corporation owned actually the sequential logo for so much time, but I mean, they appreciated, Dave Smith so much that they give him, right? They gave him, rights to use sequential, for some time that was the Dave Smith Instruments because he was not allowed, he, I think, lost his company to somebody. I mean, it's Roland or somebody, yeah. But it shows, that if creators do something for creators, there is certain, there can be a little bit of, greed, etc. But there is always appreciated for other creators. But if this is technology done by the tech bros, so Silicon Valley, then you can be sure that somebody will, it's just different kind of values, right? I'm not sure what's your take on this.
Yeah, I think the industries like the music industry where it's really competitive because a lot of people just love doing it. The music industry has been it changed so much in the last centuries, and it will keep changing. And though of course there is a lot of music on the streaming platforms that is maybe not that interesting or maybe a bit more generic, there's so many amazing new artists, and I think in the long term, the nice thing about the music and audio industry is that it's really, really focused on improving stuff for the listener and just creating great music, no matter if it's on the platform side of things with Spotify or something like that. But you can say the same thing about Spotify is really disrupting the way you listen to music. And I'm also absolutely not a fan of these quick reels that instantly skip into the middle of the song to just to get flooded by new songs and all that stuff. I'm not one of these people, but I just still think that all these things in the long term win, not because they are just something that will be pushed in from outside, but because it actually has value. And for me personally, I can say I really discovered music in a new way when I found Spotify as a teenager, for example. And I think
I hear you what you say. I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, for me it was YouTube, and sometimes I put an autoplay, and I was just surprised, how many amazing bands and songs I just discovered. Yeah, I remember even I was waking up in the middle of the night, and I just left YouTube, and it was maybe before it was just flooded with so many ads, etc. You could still listen to YouTube right without and I mean so many. I remember I just came back from the party and just woke up at 3 a.m. listening to, I think there was Trent Moller, or I think that's their name, right? And I say, wow. And it's just, like you're alone, quiet in the room, and I say that's a algorithms made some good stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, interrupted you.
No worries. But I just like AI, of course, will be extremely disruptive, and I know there's like always this comparison to like when cars were invented, like everybody was complaining that the people who trained the horses and cared about the horses and everything were losing their jobs, but it created so much more value in the long run. And I don't like all this hype of like AGI in 1 year and all that stuff. Don't worry about it too much. Like people thought the internet would eat up everything within 10 years, and there was a dot-com bubble crash, and then the internet is eating the world slowly, but it's I feel like it created so much more value, and of course AI will be extremely disruptive in every sort of thing, and that's not just the music industry.
But Moritz, have a look at this one. Internet, unlike a lot of other technologies, it's just distributed, so nobody owns internet, so to speak, right? It's just like I think that's the beauty of it, right? With all the negative aspects, social media stuff, but it's still, it's just democratic, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm worried that it's not just by technology per se, but there are some big, very, very greedy and sort of companies who have no, let's say, integrity whatsoever anymore, only shareholder values and like some big money involved, and it's just even OpenAI no longer is like a non-profit, right? I'm not sure if it changed, but the idea was that how to say, so I'm just I think trying to say is that
means you're more scared of the monopolies AI can create. You are not scared of like some other people are about the technology in general. And I feel like if you take a look at the current AI labs, they all don't operate on a profit. And I feel like the model side of things and the architectural side of things, like all these free models are getting so good right now that the core problem right now are monopolies based on the hardware, and Nvidia definitely has one there. And I think that's the thing that should scare us, because I feel like there's currently, if you compare the models, like there used to be so huge gaps between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4. And if you take a look at the benchmarks now, of course, then there will be the new Grok that's on the top of the leaderboards for 3 weeks, and then Google drops their new model, and that's on top of in the leaderboards again. And they are clashing so hard right now that I feel like there won't be a monopoly on the model side of things.
And those who own infrastructure then who owns the chips and the like a cloud. So
exactly.
So Microsoft, Amazon,
and it's actually really, really good that the monopolies are being created on the hardware side of things, because these don't control the narrative. Like if there would be only one big company with one AI model that's so much better than every other model, I think that could be a big danger. But since there are a lot of models, it's great competition on this level.
Interesting. That's a very interesting discussion. Thank you, Moritz. I never thought about it. You just vocalized something that actually I want to always was trying to say, but that's I'm just more concerned with monopoly rather than the technology itself, right? That's actually what can, since the beginning of the modern economy, right? Monopolies sort of create some.
There's one right thing with it is like although the Nvidia is the one profiting, you can still say, okay, maybe companies have monopoly based on the amount of inference you can do, like just having very big data centers to run the models, because you could argue that okay, there might be a lot of open models that are just as great as the Google model, but you can't run them because you have the missing you have the missing infrastructure. And even though if Nvidia produces them, if they would sell all these only to Google, that would be a problem as well. But in practice, it's not happening, and all these AI labs are losing so much money because the competition is so extreme, and not because there's a monopoly. If there would be a monopoly developing on this level, the profit margins would be completely different.
Yeah, but at some point you can simply like you say, either acquire some companies, or you simply do not, and sort of I would say open your infrastructure, certain and you can just by being like a monopoly hardware provider or like an infrastructure provider, right? Just simply control the market from that way, right?
I mean, that's happening. Everybody's using CUDA. I know these are like just dropping that something is a monopoly is difficult. I know, but like Nvidia is so much. Like you can look at the market cap. I would argue that it's a monopoly, and that's the main thing that should worry us right now. But yeah, huge tangent for an audio product podcast. But I hope I could. I hope my opinion is not completely useless, and I won't change it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, listen, it's just like, after all, it's all like chatting. So podcast is great because we can simply have a, like a chat about, things. Moritz, my last big question is, so what would you advise, to funders? We already have like a lot of, all this episode was just sort of framed so it can provide a little bit of, learning for funders. But if we could just like give one or two advice, piece of advice, to funders and potential funders, what would it be?
Talk to people, no matter if customers or potential mentors or people in the industry. Try to evaluate your ideas as quickly as possible. Since like I already mentioned, speed is your main advantage. And be careful about generic advice. I got a lot of bad advice as well, and especially the audio industry is not your typical. Like oftentimes the typical startup advices really don't hold up here.
Oh yeah. Hopefully, I mean, you just made me sort of think. Hopefully, the podcast is not too generic of an advice.
No, yeah. I think you have a very this is a very niche, but I think you are the perfect example of what you should listen to, because it's really focused on the audio market, and you have really smart guests as well. But like there are a lot of these very generic startup YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Of course, there's really, really useful stuff in there, but sometimes it just really not applies to you.
Yeah, perfect. But on the other hand, like you mentioned, the lean startup, I always like I wish I read this book before I have, tried building my first startup. It was actually, at the time, although very generic, but in just like changed the way I think so much, like all this like a speed and sort of like a, how to say, rapid, feedback loop, which is iterations, right? And feedback loops and pivoting and stuff, which just becomes like a second nature for people later. But I mean, if you were just like there was just the time that all this agile development wasn't that popular that much. I was actually doing my first job. I was just doing some software projects. I didn't even know it's agile because I simply came to my potential users and asked them, hey, this is a prototype, tell me what do you think? But I mean, didn't realize that this is some kind of iterative development. So things to Europe was coming a bit slower, right? Of course, maybe in US it was more like a Silicon Valley was already there. So like that's a nice piece of advice. Or I mean, any like I don't know, like a good book, one book that you could like recommend, or like a
if I would only recommend one book, I think it's The Lean Startup or The Innovator's Dilemma. One of those. Okay, those are both really great.
All right. That's cool. So cool. All right. You see, I just like I forgot. So like you escaped from one question. I mean, because I split the question into two, and we just went into like one side, and then we just forgot about like a vision. You mentioned that you don't think about like a scaling for the scaling sake, but we wanted also to touch, if you want to actually. So what's coming? Is there anything that you are working on? So can you already shed some light, or you don't want to? It's maybe too early to. Are you cooking some new products? Are you working on some new products?
Yeah, I can say we are working on something big and new, and we will try to get it out this year. But I think that's all I'm gonna say for now, to be honest. And just keep it with that. But yeah, definitely more stuff coming from us and DynAssist. DynAssist won't be the last product NoiseWorks made.
Perfect. That's good to hear.
I know, pretty vague, sorry, but yeah.
I'm thinking like internet broke for just a second and I didn't hear you for a moment, but I mean, hopefully people will, heard. I only said that, DynAssist is not going to be the last product. So,
No.
so that's good to hear.
More stuff coming probably this year is what I essentially said.
Okay, perfect. By the way, people, so to the listeners, the link to DynAssist, if you want to get, support the podcast, but also get DynAssist, there is an affiliated link from NoiseWorks, so if you buy the DynAssist, through the link provided in the there is like a small portion coming to the podcast, so I can keep inviting great guests and yeah, so that's, thank you very much, for that too. But I mean, you wouldn't be, how to say, yeah, you won't be disappointed. Okay, if you just need to have like a vocal editing and make it properly and quick, I can say for sure, because the podcast uses it on a daily basis. All right, Moritz, listen, I mean, thank you so much, for for spending some time with me. Thank you for all your insights, and I wish you all the best with new products, and I will just obviously look what's coming with DynAssist, etc. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and keep doing the podcast. It's a great thing, and you should definitely keep at it. Really cool project, and I hope that everybody listening will listen to the next episodes as well, because I really appreciate what you're doing, and I think it's a great resource, especially for aspiring founders, because it's not the generic advice I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. You see, I'm just like I would like to actually invite us like marketers, etc. I'm working already, and I don't want to provide names yet, but there will be a lot of actually on QA, on obviously there is Joshua, who is just an audio programmer who is mostly on the engineering side and technology. But the intention was here to provide like a business acumen. So there are different, and so these areas that every like technology and audio technology business has to have. So like scale in infrastructure, software development, hardware development, right, and different segments of the market, etc. So there is definitely more than just product management. Yeah, that's just like all the aspects will just touch them. Yeah, but I mean that's probably the best way is actually to listen to people who actually got somehow through how to say, are this one in 20 who succeeded, right? And yeah, they can share the experience and what were the secret sauce behind the success. All right, so thank you to the listeners, guys. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode. Thank you, Moritz.
Bye-bye.